Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. If anyone in the chat can hear me, just push 1. Oh, you know what? I don't think they can hear me. Shit. Yeah, I don't think they can hear me. Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you for the confirmation, Rain and Woman and Super Triz and Cashmatic. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 327, Economics. Please hit the like button as you come in. Share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trusts, including those posted on the community tab. We post every week. Just as an FYI, we are not certified financial planners. If you want a certified financial planner, go to cfp.net and look up one in your area. There's a docket in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with. Shout out to Super Triz. What's going on, fam? Raining Woman, good evening to you. Cashmatic, what's going on? Lady Plants a Lot, Crypto Gang, good evening to you as well. Sorry for the delay. I had to do a few things before we got started, and that takes precedence over the live stream. And because of that, we are definitely an hour late. But we'll get it in, man. We'll get it in. All right, let me also let me drop the link in the chat in case anybody wants to come on. If you want to join the panel, there'll be a link in the chat so that you all can join the panel. If when you get into the waiting room, just make sure you raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you. We can bring you on to the panel. If you want, actually, I'll wait, and we'll just go ahead and just get started because we're already an hour late. All right. All right, this one is from the LA Times. Should you pay off student loans or save for retirement? Both, and here's why. Dear Liz, what are your recommendations for a recent dental school graduate now practicing in California who has about $250,000 of dental school loans to pay off, but who also knows the importance of starting to save for retirement? So worded badly. Sorry. The answer: if you're the graduate, congratulations. Your debt load is obviously significant, but so is your earning potential. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that the median pay for dentists nationwide is more than $150,000 a year. The range in California is typically $154,712 to $202,602, according to the salary.com. Ideally, you wouldn't have borrowed more in total than you expected to earn your first year on the job. That would have made it possible to pay off the debt within 10 years without stinting on other goals. A more realistic plan now is to repay your loans over 20 years or so. That will lower your monthly payment to a more manageable level, although it will increase the total interest you pay. If you can't afford to make the payments right now on a 20-year plan, investigate income-based repayment plans such as pay as you earn or revised pay as you earn for your federal student loans. Like other graduates, you'd be wise to start saving for retirement now rather than waiting until your debt is gone. The longer you wait to start, the harder it is to catch up, and you'll have missed all the tax breaks, company matches, and tax deferred compounding you could have earned. Also, be sure to buy long-term disability insurance, even though it may be expensive. Losing your livelihood would be catastrophic since you would still owe the education debt, which typically can't be erased in bankruptcy. So that's an interesting piece because you have to juggle. In California, 150 grand is not a whole lot of money. You're actually just getting by. So I find it interesting that there's this idea that you can pay off your student loans and save for retirement. Let's look at it this way, right? Your utilities and rent expenditure or mortgage is going to be at least 36% of your income, at the very least. You know what I'm saying? All of it cumulative. How do you save for retirement if you're paying for your lifestyle, which is basically just getting by, and paying off your student loans? So you have $250,000 in student loans. That's a mortgage payment. So you're talking at least $1,800 a month is going to student loans. Separate from, let's say, your rent. Rent could be rent and utilities will probably be another $2,000 in California. So now you're talking about spending $3,600 per month just to get by and save for retirement. I don't know, man. I find that sort of advice to be very dubious because how much you earn, especially if you're early in your career, you're not going to earn a whole lot of money early in your career. It's usually tenure based, right? The longer you work, the more likely it is that you're going to have higher earning potential. So you may not see your highest growth or your peak until you're about 38, 40 years old, right? Anywhere between that age range of close to 40 or at 40, you may not see all of that. And because of that, um, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to save for retirement because all your money is going somewhere else unless you have an employee that can match your 401k or match your IRA. And most employees aren't doing that. Most employers aren't doing that anymore. They're just not interested in those benefits. That's why you see a lot of jobs going to contractors because they don't have to pay those benefits. Companies are trying to weasel out of even doing anything with it with their staff. They can keep the company I work for now, the majority of people on there, I think about 80% of the people on there are contractors unless they're at the C level and above. Then they're full-time employees, but anything below C level, they're pretty much contractors. So they don't even have a 401k or IRA or anything like that. They just have a paycheck coming in and that's it. And with what they're getting, what they're being paid, they're not actually making enough to even consider putting money down on a house or anything like that because most of their money is going to student loans or is being eaten up in other expenditures. So some of this advice, not that I'm knocking it, I just find it to be very interesting that this is how some people think. Yeah, we got 15 people watching and about 12 likes. Please hit the like button if you're not going to participate in the chat. Let me get to the next article. Unless somebody else has some input they want to add to it. All right, this next one is from Forbes.com. Morningstar is building a blockchain bridge to the $117 trillion debt securities industry. Morningstar Credit Ratings is making a number of previously unknown moves into BeGone industry of assets issued on a blockchain. The rating agency, whose parent company Morningstar Incorporated made its name rating mutual funds from the likes of Prudential, Morgan Stanley, and TD Ameritrade, is on the verge of rating a number of investment opportunities similar to Bitcoin, but backed by real-world assets. Traditionally, Morningstar Incorporated, which is valued at $6.4 billion, uses grades of 1 to 5 stars to rate a wide range of assets based on their past returns to investors relative to the risk of the investment. In spite of Morningstar Incorporated's credit ratings division only receiving permission to rate corporate debt in 2016, the upstart financial services company last year passed $1 billion in revenue for the first time, putting it within spitting distance of the veteran Fitch Ratings, which generated $1.7 billion revenue last year. Now the Chicago-based company is challenging Fitch and the other big three rating agencies, Moody's and Standard & Poor's, for pole position in the race to bring credibility to assets issued on a blockchain, also known as crypto assets. While Morningstar ratings services extend to government and corporate bonds, its blockchain work so far is limited to structured finance debt instruments. With a diverse set of clients, including a company that securities short-term small business loans on the Ethereum blockchain, a home equity security startup that uses a custom blockchain, and another that helps companies raise capital selling blockchain securities, the multiple blockchain efforts underway amount to the largest bridge being built between the mostly uncharted world of blockchain, the technology first made popular by Bitcoin, and the global debt securities industry, which had $117 trillion outstanding as of March 2019, according to the Bank of International Settlements. As these startups, some of which have been working in obscurity for years to bring institutional investors to the world of blockchain, slowly emerge from stealth and enterprise long afraid to even mention Bitcoin in the public, are increasingly finding ways to explore the underlying technology. Morningstar's interest into the space could unlock billions of dollars waiting for the moment when crypto assets finally become credible. So I think there's two things to the story. They're trying to conflate Bitcoin with all of this stuff, but what's happening here is they're leveraging the digital infrastructure of blockchain to connect all of these debt securities. And for those of you who don't understand really what a debt security is, basically what happened in 2008 was the collapse of mortgages that toxic mortgages that were doled out, knowing that they can never be repaid based on the contracts they were written on, and they were sold off. So the people got their got underwater with their mortgages, or got upside down with it, and then the house got repossessed or foreclosed on based on their inability to pay back the mortgage. And that mortgage, that debt then was wrapped up as an asset and was sold off to various underwriters. And thus it became a security. And what's happening here is that Morningstar is leveraging the blockchain to actually handle what they think is going to come in probably in the next 6 months to a year, which is a recession, because they know, just like in 2008, a lot of those debts that could not be paid, mortgages or car loans and things of that nature, um, will have to be managed somehow because it's going to be so massive. And so they developed a blockchain just for that very purpose, because now it can't, it's immutable, right? That's what blockchain's biggest security aspect of it is, that it's immutable. And what's going to happen is they're going to take all of those bad loans and student loans, especially, they're going to put all of that stuff on to the blockchain and create debt security out of it. And they're going to pass it through, and they're going to do it at rapid speed, the speed of the blockchain itself, rather than just wait for pen and paper. This is a different ball game now than what it was in 2008. This is going to be different. It's going to be more more toxic than what it was in 2008. So, and they're getting hip to this. All right, let me get to the next article. All right, this next one is from CNBC.com. Credit Karma launches a high yield savings account that earns over 20 times more than the average. Should be interesting. Credit Karma, known for offering consumers access to free credit scores, is jumping into the high yield savings game. The company announced Thursday that it will start offering consumers the option to open a high yield savings account and manage their funds through its app and website. Credit Karma's new savings option, which will not change or charge any fees and does not require a minimum deposit to open, is set to offer a savings rate of 2.03% APY. That's over 22 times the average rate of 0.09% for savings accounts nationwide, according to the FDIC. Consumers can start signing up for the new savings feature on October 28th, 2019. The company tells CNBC, "Make it. We want to make savings accessible to every American in the same way we have with credit scores." Credit, Credit Karma founder and CEO Ken Lin said in a statement Thursday, "We spent the first 12 years focusing on helping Americans manage their debt. With more than 100 million members around the globe, it made sense for us to jump across the balance sheet with Credit Karma savings." So this is a screenshot from a smartphone where this is the savings account and this is what they're offering. So you can withdraw or you can deposit with an API or APY of 2.03%. Like other fintech companies that have jumped into the space, including Betterment and Wealthfront, Credit Karma is not a bank. Instead, the company is partnering with West Virginia-based MVB Bank, which will house the funds and offer consumers FDIC insurance on their savings for up to $5 million. Once your cash is at the partner bank, the FDIC insurance kicks in, so you can rest assured that your money is safe. While interest rates are constantly changing, Credit Karma says it's leveraging technology in a network of 800 banks to optimize the best APYs for its customers. But unlike Betterment and Wealthfront, which earn money by taking a small portion of the overall APY, Credit Karma doesn't take any of the interest you earn. 100% of the interest earned is delivered back to the member. The company tells CNBC Make It. While Credit Karma's new savings option has a generous rate, it's not the highest on the market. Online bank Vio has a high yield savings account that pays 2.42% on all balances with a minimum of $100 required to open. Wealthfront currently offers a cash savings account with a 2.0% interest rate, while Betterment has a promotional APY of up to 2.11% if you sign up to be on the wait list for the company's upcoming checking product coming later this year. No matter what option you choose, funneling your savings into a secure account that earns a high interest rate can really boost your long-term gains. Yet many Americans aren't taking advantage. Just 14% of Americans have a savings account that pays more than 2% APY. Let's say you have $1,000 in your savings account at a brick and mortar bank earning the average interest. After 5 years, you'd earn about $14. But if you save your money in an online savings account that earned 2% APY, you'd have $104 at the end of 5 years. And the bigger your balance, the more it adds up. So this is interesting because in reference to Black people, ADOS, most of them don't have a savings account, mostly because they don't have enough earnings to actually do so. So there needs to be financial vehicles created for people on the lower end of the spectrum to actually benefit. It's nice that they have 2% APY, but to me, earning $14 on your savings account after 5 years doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You know, you'll probably save more money. You'll probably earn more money in a 5-year span with a credit card, for example. My credit statement came in Monday, I think, actually Tuesday, the first of the month, and I've earned $80 so far just this year alone in interest, based on my cashback rewards and interest. So the year's not even over yet, and I've already accrued $80. That's just sitting there. I haven't even touched it yet. Why am I earning more with my credit card than what a savings account is going to offer me over 5 years? What they're trying to offer, even at best in 5 years, I've done that in 1 year with just my credit card. What's the value to this, right? So we need to create financial vehicles that actually address this sort of issue of earnings. I can't see how this makes sense in the long term. Yeah, you put it into a savings account, but what the hell are you saving? What's the value behind it? All right, let me get to the next article. All right, this one is from Bloomberg.com. China won't save the world economy this time. Beijing played a pivotal role in reviving global growth after recessions in 2001 and 2008. Things are very different now. U.S. recession indicators are growing stronger, and there's one bigger than usual reason why the world would be worried. China isn't coming to the rescue this time. In the past week alone, a gauge of U.S. manufacturing unexpectedly fell to its weakest reading in a decade, and payrolls at private companies grew less than forecast. Economists are starting to wonder whether the U.S. has approached so-called stall speed the slowing pace of growth without careening into a recession. The International Monetary Fund, meanwhile, will likely downgrade global growth estimates this month. One of the engines that drove a global economic recovery after the last two downdrafts in America, the relatively shallow one in 2001 and the catastrophe that began in 2007 was China. As the financial crisis escalated, Beijing opened a floodgate of credit and cut interest rates, which stoked demand for everything from Australian coal to German cars. We're unlikely to see anything like this time. Beijing has shown little appetite for another round of massive fiscal stimulus as it atones for the uh, prolificacy of last decade, which left a massive buildup of debt and fueled asset bubbles. While Chinese authorities have been juicing the economy the past year, they have been very careful about how they go about it. Economists keep predicting cuts in the benchmark interest rate, but those haven't been forthcoming, as my Bloomberg opinion colleague Shuli Ren wrote recently. The People's Bank of China has preferred trims to lenders' reserve requirements as officials are focused on the best way to channel credit to certain sectors of the business world. Open slather easing isn't. That doesn't anger that doesn't augur well sorry that doesn't augur particularly well for the prospects of a global recovery. The financial crisis saw the world's most consequential central banks coordinate rate cuts with China participation. Beijing's involvement made China a serious player in the global monetary order. How likely is it that the PBOC will happily sign off on something with the Fed once again? With President Donald Trump sitting in the White House, not very. Then again, Trump has already linked or likened Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell to Chinese President Xi Jinping. Desperation has been known to make odd bedfellows in pursuit of shared short-term goals. The good news is that any steps China does take will have ripple effects given its sheer size. Gross domestic product is now about $14 trillion compared with barely more than $1 trillion in 2001 and about $4 trillion in 2007. Chinese firms continue to plow investments into neighboring countries, and Beijing funded lenders like the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AAIB, may well step up to provide cash to struggling economies. Let's keep things in perspective, though. China is now recording quarterly economic growth of about 6%, not the 15% notched in 2007 or the roughly 10% in 2001. The executives and politicians who tripped over themselves to praise China's model of development are noticeably quieter now. Not every recession is like 2007, nor are they always accompanied by a financial collapse. The next slump, whenever it comes, will still be painful. So the U.S. might want to start casting about for an enthusiastic partner. It's probably a mistake to expect that that'll be China this time around. It's not only less willing but less stable. So China China has very little interest in bailing out the United States this time around, especially with all the antagonizing in Hong Kong and these trade wars. They have very little interest in this, and the ripple effects. Although China is a mega player on the global stage, how this affects ADOS or Black people on the ground is that no one's coming to bail you out. No one's coming to help you. If you lose your house, that's it. You lose your car, that's definitely it. Lose your job, it's game over. No income, no shelter, no transportation. China's not going to bail you out this time. China bailed out a lot of black people back in 2008, 2009 with the mortgages, the toxic mortgages, because they bought a lot of those predatory loans and mortgages. So they owned a lot of that. They made a lot of money off of that themselves. But this time around, they may not buy into that stuff anymore. DE Raptor, good evening and shalom.
Good evening, Mike. Shalom to the chat. Hey, I can see.
If you're talking DE, we cannot hear you.
I don't know what happened. Hey, can you hear me now or no? Can you hear me or no? Hello.
Can anyone else in the chat hear DE except for me?
Oh boy. Can you hear me, Mike, or no? Can you hear me now, Mike, or no? From my point of view on the idea with it, I don't know who anybody can hear me. Oh, okay. From my point of view with the Chinese, I think the Chinese no longer see us as a partner, see the U.S. or even the West really as a partner. And they're moving away from, they are putting their money or their investment in places where they think it's best going to suit China. Like Mike said, the Asian Investment Bank, they're building all over the Philippines and other areas of Southeast Asia. Also along the Belt and Road, if you see Iran, Pakistan, and the other thing that the Chinese are doing is between them, the Russians, Iranians, the Indians, they are buying gold. And as the West, as the West, the economy in the West go into what might be a depression. Nobody's talking about depression. Everybody's talking about, oh, we might take a dip. What might be a depression? It looks like the Russians, the Chinese, and the other BRICS are going to come out with a gold standard of their own. That's my opinion. That because the way I'm looking at it is that the West has a gold, but they're still looking at the dollar as their currency of trade. And the Chinese and the Russians are going the other way. They are slowly getting rid of the dollar accounts that they have. They might sell goods to the U.S. and get dollars, but they turn around and use those dollars rather than keeping those credits, buying U.S. bonds. They turn around using the dollars that they when they sell products to the U.S. or EU or whatever the case might be, they turn around and use those dollars to either buy gold or pay for goods and services that they got from Western countries. They're no longer holding on to the dollar or the investing in U.S. bonds or European bonds. So the Chinese are moving away from the market. So I don't see how they're going to help the U.S. And with this trade, this trade, I don't know what to call it now, because it's causing more damage throughout the world. Anyway, it's turned into a fiasco. And China doesn't want to play that game anymore. You know, they've been trying to convince the West that they're doing something foolish, and China's already said, you know what, we gave up. We're not doing that anymore.
Right. Yeah, and what you're saying is not just your opinion, but the facts on the ground say so as well. Um, we know that Russia has been loading up on gold the last 5 years. Since 2015, they have ramped up on gold um, assurances. We know that Venezuela has a lot of gold. You know that the British have stolen some of Venezuela's gold for that very reason. Um, China has ramped up on a lot of gold. I think they have like over 200 tons of gold sitting in their reserves now. Um, France has been loading up on gold. Turkey has been loading up on gold. What the United States is doing, I have not really seen too much play in terms of gold maneuvers, but as you said and as I said, China's not going to come to the rescue this time, and neither are the Russians because the Russians have no interest in buying toxic debt that's going to come out of this recession. There's no benefit for them to do so. Can you hear me, De?
Yeah, I can hear you, Mike. I'm
Okay,
hearing you.
okay, yeah. So that's where we are right now. I try to connect this to ADOS and Black Americans because the ripple effect is going to be massive. You know, China can absorb a fender bender, but if you get hit with that same fender bender as ADOS, man, that can cripple you for a long time. You could be paraplegic if you're not too careful.
But you see, the problem with us as Americans, Black Americans,
Hmm.
is that we have this dependency on I am American, flying the flag, and everyone else here in America, except for the poor Caucasian,
Hmm.
they say, you know what? I'm going to Italy. I'm going to France.
Hmm.
They have family in Italy. They have family in France, Spain, wherever the case might be. I
Hmm.
know guys I used to work with, the airlines I worked with, they were Greeks. They had houses and land in Greece. They
Hmm.
were born in the US, but they had houses and land in Greece, houses and land in Spain, houses and land in Guatemala.
Hmm.
The black American, he's saying, me, I don't want anything to do with Africa.
Hmm.
Even his parents might come from the Caribbean and he's born here. I
Hmm.
don't have anything to do with Jamaica. I have anything to do with Trinidad or Barbados. There's a
Hmm.
few people who go home, you know, yeah, they go carnival or whatever the case might be, but they say, you know what, I'm American,
Hmm.
um, my money is here.
Hmm.
And they spend every penny here.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? The biggest car, don't even buy a house. And our parents came here from the Caribbean. First thing they did after they got a job was buy a house.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And a lot of black Americans are not doing that. I don't know why. Um, that's that's their choice. But you have to have a Jewish guy told me
Hmm.
he's got property Brazil, Israel, other countries. He said, look, the day that something happened in America, I get on an airplane and go to Brazil.
Hmm.
And this is a Jewish guy.
Hmm.
The day that something happened, I leave and go to Israel. And he's got money in America.
Hmm.
But he knows that if the American economy sinks,
Hmm.
that he's got something saved up somewhere else. And black Americans refuse to do that.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think that, like I said before, I think that there needs to be financial vehicles developed, to help mitigate some of this impact. You need something that's going to give a not a golden parachute, but maybe an RGB parachute. One with one with red, black, and green. So.
Well, one of the problems we have is that, um, you know, is that we don't hold on to um, family the way that we should.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? It's like you'll see uh, 10 Africans come here, one Nigerian, one Ghanaian, and they're from different countries, but they all living in one apartment.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
each one of them, when they move out of that apartment, they're gonna buy a house. Not only gonna buy a house in America, they got a house in the village in wherever country they came from.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that Black Americans don't do. Don't have that I don't know the thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like we gotta have the best car, best clothes. You know, you're gonna party and all that, but nothing to fall back on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of our biggest problems. It's like we look forward to America giving us whatever we need.
Mm-hmm. Let me get to this next article. It's from MarketWatch.com. This widening crack in the mortgage market could sink U.S. home prices. I hope my house doesn't look anything like that. Wall Street and the news media have paid considerable attention to U.S. home mortgage modifications, but not much notice has been given to the growing problem of redefaults on these modifications. Redefaults are a massive problem and endanger the U.S. mortgage and housing markets. What is a mortgage modification? In the midst of the housing collapse more than a decade ago, mortgage modifications were rolled out to enable millions of delinquent homeowners to avoid having their homes foreclosed. We talked about this a couple minutes ago. In its latest report, the nonprofit Home Hope New Consortium, the major source for modification data, estimated that 8.7 million permanent mortgage modifications have been implemented in the US since the end of 2007. A modification created permanent changes to the original mortgage by one or more of the following: A, stretching out the amortization period; B, reducing the interest rate; C, adding the delinquent interest appears to the outstanding principal, known as capitalization; or D, reducing the amount of principal owed. The 8.7 million permanent modifications do not include temporary fixes that lenders have provided. According to the Hope Now, roughly 17 million temporary solutions have been rolled out under what's called other workout plans. The two most important ones are called forbearances and repayment plans. Under these plans, millions of delinquent borrowers were provided a temporary deferment or reduction of the payments due to until due until their financial condition improves. These temporary solutions are not reported under permanent modifications. Nevertheless, owners given temporary workout solutions are considered current on the mortgage. The U.S. Office of the Comptroller of the Currency regulates national bank and publishes a quarterly mortgage metrics report. The OCC data comes from banks, which are the largest servicers of residential mortgages. In its report for the first quarter of 2013, the OCC stated that the servicers had modifications slightly more than $3 million or 3 million loans between the beginning of 2008 and the end of 2012. Of these modified mortgages, 47.3% of them were still current at the end of the first quarter of 2013. The rest were either seriously delinquent in the beginning of the foreclosure proceedings, had already been foreclosed, or were no longer in the portfolio of the servicer. In its most recent report for the first quarter of 2019, the OCC noted that 21% of the most recently modified loans had redefaulted within 6 months. Wow. More than 3 million loans guaranteed by the Federal Housing Administration, FHA, that were in Ginnie Mae pools had been modified between 2008 and 2013. A 2014 report found that they had performed badly. Roughly 57% of these modified loans had redefaulted by 2013. 57%. In July 2016, Fannie Mae released a data set close to 700,000 loans modified between the beginning of 2010 and the end of 2015 to provide greater transparency on modification performance. In February 2017, Fitch Ratings published a report based on Fannie Mae's data set entitled Risk Growing in Mortgage Loan Modifications. The authors asserted that it was reasonable to assume the trends they found for Fannie Mae modified loans would also apply to loans modified by others. The Fitch report emphasized that the most recent Fannie Mae modifications in 2015 showed the fastest redefault rates since 2010. The analysis showed this was due to the steadily rising percentage of modifications between 2010 and 2015, which were second or third modifications. In 2011, 95% of all the modifications originated were first modifications. By comparison, more than 1/3 of the modifications in 2015 were second or third modifications. The graph in the Fitch report shows clearly that redefault rates climb as delinquent borrowers enter second or third modifications. I'm not going to read all of this. This is a little bit too long, but basically for those who are not understanding what we're talking about is essentially in 2008, in order to help these people keep their toxic their homes from being repossessed, basically with these toxic mortgages, they created these mortgage modifications. These were supposed to be quick, fast solutions to avoid a catastrophic failure within the mortgage markets, as well as the housing markets. You could look at Detroit, you could look at Baltimore, you could look at any of these predominantly Black areas, and you'll see scores of houses that have went under, being boarded up, if not completely dilapidated, because the people who once lived there could not afford to live there anymore, and they were forced out of it. So what these mortgage modifications did is they allowed these quick fixes to take place, deferment, forbearances, and things of that nature, in order to allow these people to stay in their houses. These mortgage modifications are now seeing redefaults after the first fix, and even after the second fix. So these high redefaults indicate that these quick solutions, these quick fixes, actually did not fix anything. It just prolonged the inevitable, which is the redefault. What happened back then is going to be massive coming down the pike. That's why you see Morningstar creating that blockchain to handle these new sort of debt securities that's going to come online, because that's what's happening with these failed mortgages, these redefaults that will then turn into a debt security that will be shuffled off to some other servicing firm to manage all of these these toxic mortgages. I say all that to say this, that Black people are going to be at the forefront of a lot of this, because as we read in these previous articles, a lot of these people don't have a savings account, and because of that, they don't even have enough money to keep up their what mortgage they do have, especially if it's toxic. So one blip from a correction in the market could actually put them make them homeless for all intents and purposes. Johnny Blaze and Super Triz, what's going on, fam?
What's going on, Mike V?
Chilling, man, chilling.
Hey,
Yeah,
Mike,
you
how you
made
doing?
Chilling, bro, chilling.
This is a great topic, especially considering I'm actively in the process of purchasing some property myself. This would be the second property I purchased. I purchased a property back when I was 20.
You okay, Super Triz? Is it me, or did?
I can't hear him on this end either.
Yeah, I think he dropped off. I can't hear him now. I heard him before, but I don't hear him anymore.
Yeah, I
Can
think
you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you
Can
now.
you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I just drove away from my Wi-Fi, so it switched to my cellular service. My bad.
Okay.
But at any rate, most people when they actually get a mortgage, they have an escrow account, which handles their property taxes, and then some people even escrow their HOA fees.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is that when you start missing payments, now that affects your escrow account. So not only do you have an issue with your mortgage, but you have an issue with your escrow accounts, and a lot of times the HOAs are a lot less lenient, and so are the entities that control your property taxes. So you may have worked out an arrangement um, with your mortgage company, but you still have to settle your debt with your HOA and property taxes, because that can actually place a lien on your home.
Right.
Even though you settled, you went into forbearance and you managed to defer some of your payments or even modify your payments for a period of time. And then also during the mortgage, look at this guy. During the mortgage issue, like for instance, Las Vegas. In Las Vegas, there was a lot of neighborhoods that had HOA fees, and you got to read the fine print of your HOA, because what happens is that the HOA fee, there's a overall amount that they calculate for the maintenance of the common areas, and they divide that amongst the residents. So once somebody actually goes into foreclosure, and you had like in some of the Las Vegas neighborhoods, there was like 30 and 40% vacancy rate in the neighborhoods. So now the remaining 60% of residents have to divide that HOA fees amongst the rest of them. So if you're already having issues making your mortgage and your HOA fees, and now your HOA fees sometimes go up by 40% because your HOAs are divided amongst the rest of them, then you're already delinquent on some of your stuff. Like it's like really a downward spiral, and you can't get out of it. That's the reason why you see that high recidivism rate for people who have went into forbearance and who have had their mortgage modified on multiple occasions, because even though you do that, it's not a situation that they can resolve. It's just like Mike said, it's prolonging the situation.
Is it me or is it Super Trish breaking up?
Oh, that was it. I was finished.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if the situation. I will tell you guys a story. I don't know if the situation is like similar to what I'm gonna say in other parts of the country, but me and my kids, I got two kids in college here in Florida, and we were looking at whether to rent a house. And after looking at the price of renting a house, I decided, you know what? Why not buy a house? Because after they finish college, they said, after we finish college, we can sell the house. I said, okay. So we started looking around, and just in my area around Melbourne and Coco, there are like 10,000 houses in foreclosure, and this is not this is a big area, but 10,000 houses in foreclosure in this area is a lot of housing. So, and Mike was just talking about those houses that still underwater because the banks trying to modify the payments so that people can stay in the houses. And when you add that up, if this economy goes into any kind of if like in my area where the if you work at say Walmart or Target or there's no big
Industry
manufacturer, so you be making less than I say $15 an hour, and if you lose that job, you know, especially if you are the only person in that family working, you cannot pay your mortgage. And not only that, and this increasing number of people who can't pay their mortgage now, even though it's modified, plus the people who can't pay their mortgage now because they don't have the money to pay their mortgage. This whatever is going to happen in this economy is going to be worse than people think it's going to be.
Hmm.
And
Johnny Blaze.
I was looking at the list of cities, and there are like four of them in Florida. Is Miami,
Mhm.
Orlando, Jacksonville, and I think one other in the Northwest.
Mhm.
That they're looking at the housing market is on just barely holding on. If the economy goes south next year, as they say, it's going to be really bad.
Johnny Blaze, you got anything you want to add to this?
You know, the only thing I really want to add is I don't know if you guys have seen the movie The Big Short, but this reminds me a lot of that. Like it's pretty much the whole 2008, happening all over again. I just bought a house myself a few months ago. I was renting for a while, but I decided to go ahead and buy it, and I mainly did it for the tax break. But like you said, Black Americans, they're in for a rude awakening if they didn't learn from the first time. I'm hoping that some of these folks are going to try to prepare themselves, but it's not looking promising.
Listen, I know someone who just lost their house last week, inherited from their parents. She had, college educated Black woman, highly educated, working at a very high performing pharmaceutical firm, making lots of money, and she still lost the house. The house was worth $800,000. Okay, been in the family for probably the last 50 years, and Miss Independent she was dealing with all these pookies, and they spent that money up, man, and couldn't afford to keep the upkeep on the house, man, and they ended up having to sell it. They had lost it.
Hey, I got a quick story on that, and I'm gonna try to make it real, real short. But
Mhm.
a friend of my mom's passed away about 2 years ago. She was a retired Army, left a house and insurance money for her three kids. They're all grown adults. The
Mhm.
son had the house. The other two daughters were out doing their thing. The son, and he ended up letting his girlfriend, the baby mama, move in, and he let some
Mhm.
of his little Pookie Ray Ray friends move into the
Mhm.
home.
Mhm.
And the guys he let move in started going through his mail. They
Mhm.
found all the mail dealing with the insurance money. They bled him dry.
Wow.
They moved out. Girlfriend moved out, and basically he was forced to sell the house to a bunch of folks for like pennies on the dollar. So, I mean, the guy was broke in less than 2 years.
That's one of our problems, man. We don't we don't consider money as a long term, pass it on to from generation to generation. It's
Mhm.
like money is something that we supposed to enjoy and spend it right now, and it's good.
Did DE just drop out, or
You didn't hear me?
no?
No, I
You
was saying, most black people just consider money to be something that when you got it, you just spend it to enjoy yourself, and don't look down the road and say, you know what, my grandkids gonna need this. We want to keep this in the family.
That's a good point that you and Johnny Blaze are bringing up, because a lot of Black people are just handing off debt to their kids, and it's a shame. You know, King Damiente in the chats ask, how will this collapse affect young people under 30? Man, it sounds like doomsday. Um, the best way I can answer that, and the rest of you guys can jump in after me, it's going to be catastrophic if you don't have a particular skill set, especially in STEM. You can survive in STEM, because most jobs won't be automated in STEM. They still, for all intents and purposes, are still human operated. But for those jobs that were redundant in terms of their process, they will be automated, and a lot of ADOS people, Black Americans who are living here, are in these are in 8 of 10 of those markets. So they are very much in the crosshairs of the collapse that they may not recover from. I know a lot of single mothers who are getting these subsidies and whatnot will have these subsidies removed sometime in 2020, because I think that's what the Trump administration has been looking at, reducing Section 8 vouchers and subsidies. So a lot of women that I know who are single mothers are actually moving back in with their parents. So you have multi-generational living under one roof. And that's causing a lot of stress, because the little activities that they were getting into before, when they were in these little subsidized housings, you're not going to be able to do that with mom in the house, with dad in the house, if there is a dad there. So it's going to cause a lot of social problems, and it's going to force Black people to really relook at how they view the economy, how they view themselves as Americans, and what's the next step forward. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
Hey, Mike, it's interesting that you bring up people moving back home, multi-generations in one house. But a lot of other cultures, you see them living under one house, but things work out fine. They're able to capitalize on that family unit.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that, that most Black Americans cannot capitalize and use that to their advantage.
Mm-hmm. I think what happens with that is that Black people, especially women, pride themselves on being independent as a sort of growth and development aspect of being an American adult, right? And what's happening here is the last 30 years have allowed Black Americans to not depend on each other, because there was opportunities there in the auto industry, and the corporate offices and government backed jobs. Now a lot of those jobs are being automated, and a lot of those jobs are laying off. We just saw GM lay off 6,000 this week. The reality that little fantasy that they were living before is no longer sustainable. They have a hard time coming to grips with that sort of culture that Indians have and Pakistanis have. Most of my Indian co-workers and colleagues have multi-generational living under their houses. They have kids, but they bring their parents in, which are the grandparents of the children, on a visa or green card or whatever it is, for 6 months, and then they swap it out every single year, and that's how they live. That's not a big deal to them. So for a lot of Black people, they don't seem to really have an interest in multi-generational living, because they see themselves as being independent, not necessarily needing to rely on Black men, nor have this sort of communal thinking. They only have communal thinking in theory, right? So that idea sounds good when you talk about the community, but when it actually comes down to it, all of a sudden now that's not really sexy to them anymore.
Well, I think part of the issue is that there was no concern over lineage in the context that other groups concern themselves with.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you're looking at the immediacy of things, like you have your own place, you have a car, probably most likely a car note, perception wise, it looks like you're doing good, and that's the only concern, as opposed to making the necessary sacrifices, which may not yield that immediate gratification, but down the line the struggle becomes less and less. Like when I did my stream on sacrifice, the precursor to productivity. I was en route to a housewarming / birthday party, and this particular lady, these are all individuals I work with, but the house that I went to was somebody who paid for the house cash. I mean, excuse me, she had the house built from the ground up, cash money. Like, she has no mortgage. She had the land. The land was family land, and she had the house built on the family land. Now, mind you, she already has a house that she already paid off and had a mortgage. She's putting that house in the market for sale, but now she built her dream home from the ground up. That's because there's a concern of lineage from her predecessors. The another lady that went to the actual get together. She has several houses. She has land in Mexico. She has houses in other states. Her father passed away, left an estate with like millions of dollars in stocks and bonds.
Mm-hmm.
She has houses that are paid off. Her house, like we was looking at some of the real estate in her neighborhood that is not even in good condition as the house that she's in. It's selling for 1.8 million. And she has a house that's completely paid off and pristinely renovated. And so it's like, these are things that somebody had to make a sacrifice within that lineage and said, you know what, I'm not concerned with conspicuous consumption because I'm looking at the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody wants to look at the big picture. And so every successive generation has to start from ground zero.
Mm-hmm.
You got to pay for your own school, get loaded in student loan debts. You live in an apartment for a while. You finally, buy a house. You got a mortgage. You're upside down in your payments. You lose the house. You start from ground zero. Your kids, you're not passing on anything to your kids. Trying to have a GoFundMe for the burial. It's like it's a never-ending cycle. Nobody wants to make that sacrifice, but they want to look good from the outside. From everybody else's perspective, it looks like you're doing good because you have the Jaguar X Type, you have the Range Rover, you have the 2007 Range Rover that stays in the shop more than you're driving it. But when you're driving it, it looks good because it's a Range Rover. Like
engine lights.
Engine lights going on, tires bald, look like you got drag slicks on it, not even DOT legal. Like, I mean, the airbag suspension is out. It looked like you got your Range Rover lowered, but it's really the airbag suspension that went out. The compressor is out on all four corners. Like, it's really ridiculous. It's sad. It's really sad. I'm not gonna lie, I got caught up in that nonsense. I had all these cars and motorcycles and stuff when I used to, but I had to scale back and say, you know what? I got a Toyota 4Runner. That's it. I don't got any other cars. I got one vehicle. I got a Toyota 4Runner, and I'm saving money. That's it.
What's interesting is that Farrell Edmondson in the chat, shout out to Farrell, man. He said prostitution is going to go up. So you really think about it. OnlyFans.com, Ben's Gang. That's where you want to find Farrell Edmondson at. He's right about that.
Prostitution is being decriminalized. Like I see that coming. There are already strong campaigns for prostitution to be decriminalized. And what's really surprising is the amount of women of age. Like I'm talking about, like when I say of age, I'm talking about women, over 40 that are actually in support of the legalization and decriminalization of prostitution.
Because it sounds good on its face. It's a sort of independence movement for women. They see that as a form of liberation, but in reality, it's a sign that the economy is dragging. And I think Rhode Island was the first state to actually just completely legalize it. It's completely legalized in Rhode Island now. So how they were able to get this passed, I don't know. I guess I haven't seen anything in Rhode Island worth even traveling for, so I can't imagine who's paying for it. All right, let me get to this next one. CNN.com. San Diego backyard shed is for rent for $10.50 a month. If you're in the market to rent a home in San Diego, this backyard shed could be yours for a whopping $10.50 a month. Yes, really. The studio is located in the backyard of a home in the North Park neighborhood, which is one of the city's most walkable neighborhoods. The listing calls the shed a studio, but neighbors aren't exactly convinced. I was amazed it was going for that much money. Joe Moreno, who lives nearby, told CNN affiliate KGTV, does it have plumbing? I mean, does it have facilities? The 200 square foot studio apartment does have plumbing, an air conditioner, stove, and small refrigerator. It doesn't, however, have a washer and dryer or parking, the listing said. While the rent seems outrageous to some, the asking price is $300 per month less than a typical studio in the area. The company renting out the property, JD Property Management, doesn't expect to have an issue with the price, considering the former tenant paid $1,100 a month for 2 years. Maybe it's high for what it is offered at, but the reality is that the square footage and the location is exactly what this market needs. Housing industry analyst Alan Nevin told KGTV. Applicants interested in renting the shed must have a credit score of 650, an income of 2.5 times the rental amount, no history of evictions or rental references. So let me play the video, see if that works. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of similar to what slaves used to live in during slavery. Except it didn't have any utilities. It was just a couple of cots in a shed.
You know, Mike, there's a whole shed to house conversion movement. I don't know if you're aware of that, but it's been going on for quite some time. People, there's actually entire websites and even YouTube channels devoted to actually doing reviews on different sheds from different manufacturers, those from Home Depot, some from Lowe's and other mail order entities, and saying like, you know, which ones are the most cost effective, and you know, as far as like some of them are actually build ready. Like actually, some of these sheds, believe it or not, are actually of high quality, and it doesn't require a whole lot of modifications. And then from the outside, like you actually, you know, from the actual code perspective, you say that it's a shed, but then when they do after they do the inspection, that's when you add the plumbing and make it habitable.
Yeah. Well, I think the sexy term that they use now is a tiny house. So now, you know, anything that's like 200 square feet in a box, it's a tiny house. So they're putting lipstick on it, but you know, at the same time, you know, that's what the slaves used to live in. But my point here is that that's the way the market is moving into. I saw a video. I should have probably put it on the docket. They took a dumpster and modified it into a home. You know, an actual dumpster that you would, you know, flip the lid up and then you would throw your trash bags into it. They actually took one of those and modified it into a house, into
I
a
saw
living
that.
space. Crazy.
I did see that. I did see that.
Sounds like it sounds like the container homes.
It's worse than a container home, dude. It's literally a dumpster. They took a
Wow.
dumpster, brand new, and modified it into a house to see how small of a space can a person live in.
Wow.
It's outrageous, but this is where this country's going. A lot of black people think that they're gonna, you know, it's going to avoid them. It's not going to be that bad. No, it's going to be very bad. This is how they're thinking. You know, a dumpster on 4 wheels being converted into a home.
What got me about this particular article is that the cost of that, I don't know what to call it, 10 by 8, is in Florida. You can get a 3-bedroom home, rent a 3-bedroom home for that price. I mean, it's I couldn't fathom it. This is San Diego, you know, somebody living in something like that paying over $1,000 a month, and then you have your qualifications to get into that is higher than for buying a house.
They want
You
to
can get an FHA loan as long as you can show proof that you had a job, I guess, for about 3 or 4 years, and you know your thing doesn't have to be exactly 650,
Mhm.
but you can't have a lot of outstanding debt. You know what I'm saying? You can't owe somebody 15 people a few $1,000s, and you can buy a house.
Yeah, but they're talking about they're talking about a 650 credit score.
Yes, that's
Really?
what I'm talking about.
If you want to buy an Infinity, a G series Infinity, you only needed like a 580 credit score. So you make that make sense.
I'm still confused about this whole thing, man. I'm looking at that thing. I was laughing. Serious.
Look, and for those of you in the chat, look at the screen now. This is what I'm talking about.
Wow, I have never seen this. This, oh, man. Wow,
Yeah,
this
this
is
is this
crazy.
this is what they're talking about. Oh, you guys are spreading doom and gloom. This is never going to happen. This is what they're thinking. This is a solution to homelessness. This is their idea. We build more dumpsters. We put your ass in a dumpster. this this will solve everything. Look, it has an air conditioner on the side of it and a welcome mat too. You niggas is trash, man.
See,
No
well,
one else is talking about this, man. This is the first I'm hearing of this.
this is something. This is a part of the economy that we don't want to hear about.
Hmm.
Seriously,
The
people
ugly
don't
side of it.
want to hear about it. People don't really want to hear about it because America has this optimistic attitude about everything. And when the facts start coming out, it makes them upset.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So people don't want to see things like that. When they see it, when they do see it, they think it's an oddity. You know, look at it, smile, and say, "Wow, man, that's nice." You know, you do it. But when if they have to live in that situation, it's like after 2006, people live in their cars everywhere,
Hmm.
and people say, "You know what? I used to make $200,000 a year. You know, and now
Hmm.
me and my three children are living inside this car." And says, "I never thought this would happen to me."
Hmm.
That's the situation in America.
You know what's
But
crazy is that this one has cable TV hooked up to it. Look at the antenna right here. Or it has it must have kind of dish satellite or something to it. Yeah, it has a antenna erected from it with a solar panel roof on it. But it still has the stickers on it, recycling, and I would be worried that one of these dump trucks may come back and pick that sucker up and put you right in the motherfucking in the dumpster with it. And you won't know what to do with it because they thought it was legit. So somebody called it in.
a lot of these people, what I've seen when I start reading these articles, when I start getting into this thing, I saw a lot of people are saying, "You know what? I used to live doing this, and I never used to have any money. And now I lived into this minimalist space. They call it minimalist
Mhm.
space. And now I went from owing $50,000 to now I got 50,000 in the bank."
I mean, look at this. This is not a joke. I mean, people are laughing in the chat. It's funny, but this is really what's coming down the pike. In 15 to 20 years, this is how black people are going to be living.
A lot of them are not going to be, from what I'm seeing, a lot of them are going to be living on these bridges and the overpasses.
Hmm.
If you look at LA and shoot, some of the videos I've seen of LA is they're trying to get people out of the park. They have cardboard boxes. You
Can you
know,
imagine people live streaming on YouTube from a dumpster? I
uh,
mean,
Hey,
talking about their select men.
hey, look, when all those foreclosures hit, trust me, the seller of these things is probably gonna go through the roof.
Oh yeah.
oh yeah,
Or better
Yeah.
yet, they'll probably rent them out.
But here's my question: like, is that really the most cost effective option for housing, and especially when you consider the optics of a dumpster, right?
Mhm.
Like really, like you can't think of a better solution because number one, I don't think it's cost effective considering that it's all metal construction.
Mhm.
So I don't think that's cost effective. And then um, the actual properties of an all metal construction in the summer I don't know how habitable that's going to be in the summertime, but I don't know. But there's got to be better options than the optics of having a dumpster. It's like that's really, really dehumanizing, I would think.
Mhm. Well, I mean, you have this sort of movement, man. Save yourself, black men. But this is, on a little ridiculous side. This is a little bit ridiculous for me, man. I mean, look at the black woman standing right out there. My Pookie's in there. I bet.
Well, you know what? The benefit is like there's nobody arguing over who's gonna take out the trash.
Oh man, look at this, man. I mean, they got ketchup sitting out there. Just looking at that makes my stomach turn, man. Like, who would want to eat in something like that?
Okay, but here's the question: like, for those that want to do a residential conversion of that, that's not an actual all-inclusive dwelling. Because what about the actual, restroom and washing facilities? Like how can the structure of that size accommodate that?
You can put
I know you can put a composting.
No, they're actually. I got a 21-foot boat, and there's this little porta potty that you can put in there.
Yes, it's called a composting toilet. I know about the composting toilet, but then what about like an actual sink and a shower? I mean, you have to have an outside shower.
What you need to bathe for? What you need to bathe for? Niggas is trash, man.
Baby wipes, bro. Baby wipes.
Hey, maybe it'll be like a modular thing. You buy one dumpster that's your living room, the other dumpster is your bathroom. You kind of put these things together.
You look at this. They got people sitting up in there, camped up in there. And they got a fire extinguisher. What do you need a fire extinguisher for? I mean, what is there, like an exit sign there too? Like, this way out? There's only one way out, nigga. This shit is outrageous, dog. But this is what Black America's gonna have to deal with,
Well, a lot of Caucasians are dealing with that kind of stuff right now. Seriously.
I mean, they live in tents, but this is like a McMansion, in the hood, I guess.
I mean, it would just make more sense to buy like a used van or a used. Actually, another thing, a used ambulance. Like again, I was there's these communities that are devoted to frugal living, conversion of sheds and what they call stealth vans, where they actually have a van that you don't know that somebody's living in. It looks like a work van, but people actually live in them. But another thing is an actual ambulance, because the ambulance is already pre-wired with sockets, and some of even the newer ambulances have USB ports and things like that. So it's a lot easier to make that conversion to an actual dwelling if you actually were trying to look at living frugally, because you can get a used ambulance for probably about $6,000 with a diesel engine.
It's Trish, you're saying $6,000. This dumpster's free, man. You can find dumpsters all over the place in alleys and back ways and stuff like that, man. You just gotta let the rats get out first. What I'm saying is that they somebody in the chat asks, does it come with hardwood floors? Actually, it does come with hardwood floors and insulation. I mean, they ask where is the toiletry? Where are you going to urinate and defecate at, man? You just go outside and take a piss, man. It's like any other time you would just do that anyways, right?
Well, actually, a composting toilet is actually very, very small. They have like these composting toilets that you can like slide under something, and then you slide it out when you need to use it and slide it back. So the main thing is that actually having enough. I mean, can you actually lay lengthwise in one of those? You have to lay diagonal. Like, what's the length of it?
I think there's a what is it?
A pop out or something?
Yeah, it's a pop out, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, you got cable TV up in there. People live streaming straight from a dumpster. Talking about, I can't. You guys with your passports. You're just going over there because you can't get women, and you can, nigga. Do tell, nigga. I'd love to see that.
Hey, it'll survive a tornado.
You would hope, for their sake.
I don't know. It got wheels on it. It's probably rolling all over the place.
Man, This is hard living coming for a lot of ADOS people, man. And I know, look at this here.
Is that a 2-story dumpster? Was that a 2-story dumpster?
Oh yeah.
I saw a lady with on some, and they got an AC on it too. Look
Look at the beds right here.
It's a 2-story dumpster with
stairs.
stairs.
It's dual tenant. Dual tenant. This is the future. 2035. We say 2053. This is what's going to happen in 2053.
It's not my future.
Oh man, for some people it is, man. Look at the way how they got the storage set up right here, right in the floor of the floor of the dumpster itself, man, has turned into a dresser, a bureau. So basically, you're sleeping on top of your bureau. So you lift, I guess you lift the mattress up, and all your stuff is at the bottom. But this is it, man. You know, I guess it's cool if you don't got no mortgage.
This kind of reminds me when I was in Texas, when I was stationed out in Texas, when I was an instructor. We had a couple of students who got caught having sex in a dumpster.
Wow.
So
I've been talking about some gutter sex, man.
yeah.
This shit is crazy. It's nuts out here, man. It can't be that serious that you have to, you know, get your nut off in a dumpster.
Hey, you know what? Because these, you know, I taught tech training for about 4 years. So these are the guys coming out of basic training, you know. I'm surprised they had to get it in.
13 weeks now? 13 weeks is a long time.
All right, let me get to this next article. This one's from USA Today. Bed Bath & Beyond store closings. Retailer increases projected closures to 60. If you're not talking, please mute your online. Bed Bath & Beyond Incorporated is increasing the number of stores it expects to shutter in the fiscal year. The New Jersey-based home good retailer, which also operates Bye Bye Baby, Harmon Face Values, and World Market, says it will close 60 stores in the fiscal year across the company, up 20 from the April estimate of 40 stores. Most of the closings are expected after the holiday shopping season in early 2020, company officials said during a quarterly earnings call Wednesday. The company's fiscal year typically ends in early March. 40 of the stores closing will be Bed Bath & Beyond stores, and 20 will be stores in the company's other concepts, Interium CEO Mary Winston said during the call. With this action, we are increasing the profitability of our remaining portfolio and believe that our remaining fleet will benefit from our renewed focus on driving traffic and operating efficiency. Winston said, adding, the fleet optimization will create a better balance between our physical and digital presence within the markets we serve. As of the end of August, the company had 1,534 stores, including 993 Bed Bath & Beyond stores nationwide, and in Canada, 277 stores under the names of World Market, Cost Plus, World Market, or Cost Plus, 126 Bye Bye Baby stores, 81 stores under the names Christmas Tree Shops, and that, in 55 stores under the names Harmon Face Values, or Face Values. Winston said there are no plans to renegotiate all leases, and said that $350 million of inventory at retail will be removed from stores before the 2019 holiday season through a series of markdowns and clearance events. According to global marketing research firm Coresight Research, across the retail sector, nearly 8,600 store closures have been announced for this year, up from around 5,900 closings in 2018. The going out of business sales and liquidation of the brands is expected to continue. CoreSite estimates closures around 12,000 by the end of the year. This is it, retail apocalypse. We covered last week. We covered Forever 21, and now you have Bed Bath & Beyond saying adios, sayonara. I guess you could look at the upside of this is that if things are going to be discounted, it's going to be a whole lot of NutriBullets and other sort of blenders, ninjas and whatnot on sale. And if you got a dumpster, it'd be a perfect time to furnish your apartment, furnish your dumpster out with these sort of closures.
Hey, Mike, we have a Kmart that's right near my house. It's doing a going out of business sale as well. But what's interesting, we had Sears do this same thing last year, and I noticed something though when they had the price reductions. I began to notice that some of the items, all they really did was mark the prices up and then threw a 50% sale sign to get them back at the original prices.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, they're no fools, man. So
yeah.
I think Amazon has done a number on most of these retailers. So they should have saw the writing on the wall. Somebody had to be doing the data analytics and looking at this and saying we cannot maintain profitability with brick and mortar against Amazon. Impossible. They should have already shifted 8 years ago. Sears should have figured this out in 2008. But again, what you have is these dinosaur sort of C-level executives that are saying, no, we can stick it out. We're going to stick it out. And then next thing you know, the data says otherwise, that you cannot stick it out. Amazon came in there like a bulldozer and completely rammed the market for what it was. And those C-level executives who made those decisions, I would definitely be cautious of dealing with them. All right, this last one is from CNN.com. What the retail apocalypse means for the American economy. The retail apocalypse over the past several years have devastated America's department stores, chains, and mom and pops. Stores are closing at record levels. The number of people working in retail is on the decline. And all of that has happened at a time when the economy was strong. But if the United States slips into a recession, as many economists fear it will sometime next year, the problems plaguing retail could get far worse. Store closings could accelerate and layoffs in the sector, a major provider of American jobs, could spread. Brick and mortar retailers are already in recession. Mark Zandi, chief economist for Moody's Analytics. They've been laying off workers coming up on 3 years. And this is a time when consumers are outspending aggressively. If the broader economy is in recession, there is going to be blood in the streets. Remember that. If their broader economy is in recession, there is going to be blood in the streets. Maybe inside some of these dumpsters as well. You see a lot of blood in there too. Forever 21 on Sunday was the latest major retailer to file for bankruptcy. It announced plans to close as many as 178 stores in the United States, about a third of those it operates. Earlier this month, Fred's, a 72-year-old discount chain, said it would close its remaining 300 stores. U.S. retailers this year have already announced more than 8,200 store closings, well above the previous record of 6,700 in 2017, according to CoreSite's research. By year's end, the annual tally could reach 12,000. CoreSite's estimates, Payless and Gymboree both filed for bankruptcy for a second time this year, closing nearly 3,000 stores between them. Consumers shifting their purchases from traditional stores to online are a big part of the problem. In fact, consumer spending remains strong and unemployment is at about a half century low below 4%. But fears of a downturn loom. Other major economies are already in or near recessions. A trade war between the United States and China could cause the price of consumer goods to rise. A survey by Duke University found that two-thirds of chief financial officers expect a recession by the end of 2020. Meanwhile, many retailers have borrowed heavily. If the economy were to struggle, it would accelerate the collapse of a lot more of the debt finance retailers, finance retailers, and you would see an acceleration in store closures, said Greg Portal, lead partner in the global consumer and retail practice of consultant at Kearney. So far, many of the retailers have failed did a poor job meeting consumers' needs, Porto said. A recession would put a squeeze on even better managed or up and coming and retailers. Their future depends on them being able to find financing, he said. Consumers are likely to pull back on spending if unemployment starts to rise, Moody's Zandy said. And credit is likely to get tighter, both for retailers and for consumers. A lot of retailers are hanging on because the broader economic environment is strong. Interest rates are low. Credit is available, Zandy said. No sector is more dependent on credit. If a recession comes, credit will get cut off to both to consumers and the retailers. That is going to mean a rash of bankruptcies and a lot of lost jobs. And retail is one of the biggest sources of employment in the U.S. economy, with 15.8 million jobs, or more than 10% of all jobs nationwide. The only areas to employ more people are healthcare and all of the levels of federal, state, and local government. It employs so many people in every community, Zandy said. If consumers pull back and store closings mount, no other sector of the economy will be able to pick up the slack. The retail sector has lost nearly 200,000 jobs since the start of 2017, with most of these jobs losses coming from traditional department stores and clothing stores. The job losses across the sector would have been worse had it been for some new players moving into vacated stores. In a recession, those store closings are likely to slow and store closings are likely to increase. So far, the low unemployment rate has meant that many retail workers who lose jobs when stores close are able to find something else. If unemployment increases as it does in a recession, it will be harder for laid off retail employees to find jobs. They are generally low paying jobs, but they are very important to a very vulnerable group within the economy, said Sandy. He said because of that, retail job losses could worsen any recession, no matter its causes. There will be blood in the streets, said the CFO. If the broader economy is in recession, there is going to be blood in the streets. CFOs, according to this article, were saying somewhere in Q3, Q4, there will be a recession.
Sorry to tell you, Mike, but people, you're saying CFO is saying somewhere in Q3, Q4, but it's already started. I don't know if you guys know a lot about financing, especially what goes on with the Fed or interbank finances. It's called Fed funds rate.
Mm-hmm.
The Fed has been pushing for the last, I think it might be a little bit over 3 weeks. Every night, they started at 65 billion. And I think it's somewhere close to 90 billion per night now. The Fed is putting this money into the overnight market.
Mm-hmm.
This money is not something that they're getting back every day. It's not like they put it in tonight and getting it back tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm.
That's what normally happens between the banks.
Mm-hmm.
But the banks aren't lending to each other. 'Cause- and they're not lending to say um I'm shipping grain to China and I
Mm-hmm.
need a few million to do so and so and so, you know, that's the kind of money that banks will send me. Bank will send me the money, and then when I get paid, they take when my money when my funds from China come through, they will
Mm-hmm.
take their money back.
Mm-hmm.
That money is dried up, so the Fed now has to put that money in the market, and they're close to $1 trillion in the market right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the things that happened in 2006, I think it is 2008
Mm-hmm.
with Lehman Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they said happened to Lehman Brothers, but Lehman Brothers thing was a fiasco all on its own. But
Mm-hmm.
people are saying that we're expecting a recession down the road, but it's here right now.
But
Everybody's trying to hide it, and the president is doing a pretty good job of hiding it. This thing about his about they impeaching him.
mm-hmm.
Impeachment might I don't even use the word. This is a job he's doing that they all are doing,
Mm-hmm.
hiding what's really going on.
Well, when you say that the recession is already here, we're at the very early stages of it, right? So we're at the stage one of it. The CFOs, according to the article and all the other statistics, are pointing to late 2020. So what I'm saying here is that we still have at least at the very least 12 more months to go before we see a battering ram come in. Um, and that's why you see the pictures I was showing about the dumpster. The original article I saw that in was to address the sort of homelessness on Skid Row, right? So people who lived on Skid Row, or not lived on Skid Row, but live in California, say that 80% of those people out there are black males. This is where the rubber meets the road, because if you're talking about putting black men at the dumpsters as a solution to homelessness, man, or the international United Nations term is IDP, internally displaced people. Yeah, I mean, people thought that we were, making up jokes about 2053. That's not really serious. 2053 is here. This is the beginning of it. This is what they're thinking is going to be the way of living in the United States after a major recession, after the fourth industrialization. Those who cannot compete in that area, this is what they're going to be relegated to. And like the article said, if it gets even worse, it's going to be blood in the streets.
Uh,
So I got a question for both you guys. So I mean, armed with this bit of knowledge that we have right now,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think might be some options, for let's say the average black man who's working, got most of his stuff together. What do you think is the best way they can kind of arm themselves in
Mm-hmm.
preparation, for this full blown recession here?
Man, sell all those Jordans in your closet. Um, really, just stack your money. Don't spend it on anything. You would be a fool at this point to go out and go buy a new Infinity, a new Mercedes. At this point, you would be crazy. Um, Also, I think the tiny house market. I follow the tiny house market very closely, and over 75% of the buyers of tiny houses are actually women. It's not men. So we see women are looking out for their best interest by buying these tiny houses. Tiny house can go anywhere between 10,000 to about 50 grand. Um, and they're actually pretty decent. They're especially the self-sustaining ones. They're actually very decent with the fifth wheel setup. I think that black men should be looking at this. You should be counting every dollar that goes out, every dollar that comes in, and you should be saving at least 10% of your at least 10 to 20% of your earnings. Don't don't get into the into the consumerism that has plagued a lot of people over the last few years or the last few presidential cycles. Big screen TVs and stuff like that. I haven't bought a TV probably in the last 5 years. I only replaced this one recently because it died. I had no other choice. I just had to go out and get another one. But it lasts me for about 7 years. So at the price I paid for it was like $300 when I bought it. I bought it refurbished. It was actually open box, and I think I spent like $300 on it, and it lasted for 7 years. So I probably paid like 25 cents, 20 cents a day to own it. So I look at the total cost of ownership of these goods, and I see that at 20 cents a day, 15 cents a day, it actually had a good return on investment. So what I'm saying here is that you're gonna have to figure out some investment vehicles. We talk about putting lunch money into cryptocurrencies. Whatever you spend on a lunch, that's what you're going to put into cryptos. Gold, silver, bullion. I think that those are viable markets. Keep in mind that we're not certified financial planners. So if you want a certified financial planner, go to cfp.net and look up one in your area. We do not give out financial advice on this channel, but this is what I would do if I was in that position. DE, you have anything else you want to add?
Well, you covered you covered most of it, bro. But if you have a house, like my brother asked me, if you have a house, and say you got a 3 bedroom house, and you only use 2 bedrooms, um, turn one into Airbnb. Not kidding. Turn it into an Airbnb. Even if you have to share your bathroom, you know what I'm saying? Don't buy a car, like Mike said. Don't buy a new car. You know what I'm saying? Any big ticket items, if you can, save 1 year, have 1 year in cash, or something you can turn into cash. Um, Close to you, because if if you are single and you live close to your parents, don't be afraid to move back in with your parents. Serious, because say Mike saying that CEOs are saying the third or fourth quarter of next year, and if your job is in the service sector, and you know that the service sector is going to get hit in any recession, and you paying, say you live in New York City, and you're paying $1,800 a month for an apartment, so you can bring your girlfriend over. That $1,800 that you're paying every month, you can save if you're living in your parents' house, or if your brother or sister get together with somebody, and you might be paying them $200 or $300 a month to live, but you saving $1,500. You got to look at your finances and see how much money you got going out. Because if you're making $3,000 a month and you spending your $3,000, when something hits, it's like having a hurricane. You don't have any money left, and not only saving for yourself, but look around at your other family members, whether it be your parents or friends or whatever the case might be, and get them to do the same thing, because they might be the one who you might have to put up because they're spending their money and wasting it. So invest your money in something that Right now, ooh, like Mike said, we're not investment professionals. So like if you're in the stock market, you got a 401k and you're invested in stocks that that are going boom. Take 50% of your money out and put it in something that if the market goes down, that you're not going to lose half your money day one, because the market will when people start selling off stock, it's hard to keep it from, unless they close the market, it doesn't stop. It keeps going down. So if you own Telsa, like Telsa dropped the other day, if you own Telsa and not Tesla, Tesla. If you own Tesla stock and your Tesla stock just take a dive, in one day you lost 20%, 30% of your investment.
The hedge.
So what you got to do is if you got 50,000 in that Tesla stock, if you made some money already, put it somewhere in a fund that the funds are spread out, so you're not going to lose you're not going to lose that 20% that you lose in Tesla.
The hedge is precious metals. Put it in gold, silver. Put it in that. Buy real estate. Put it also into raw land. Put it into things that you could turn to cash ready assets at a point in time, or at least have some income property. We have monies coming in. Hedge your bets against the stock market. What's driving the stock market? For big companies reinvest in their stocks. The minute they see the market going down, they're going to pull out. Everybody's going to drop. What are they going to do? They're going to put their money in cash and they're going to go to the precious metals areas, and somebody even try to play the long bond market. But you might be looking at some inverse bond yield curves, depending on how some of these other countries are going to play on a drop in the market. So you have to put your stuff in what's some of the most safe investments that have been safe investments over the last 5,000 years. Precious metals, gold, silver. This is what you want to be taking a look at. Also, real estate, income producing properties that can at least keep income coming in. Okay, on you. That's the game you really want to play if you really want to diversify your game in some respects against some of these tremendous crashes that may be coming down on you. All right, and we're not investment professionals. I had a Series 7, I had all that. So I had quite a few Series 24 and Series 8 and all that. So I know the game, but this is what you want to be taking a look at if things really get swirly. All right, that's what you want to do. All right, that's the game, and then that's what a lot of the big boys are doing, and some of them are already doing it if you're watching closely.
Hey, good information. Thanks. I just brought that up. I thought I'd get that out to the audience just in case there's somebody who's maybe thinking about the question. I thought I'd ask it.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
No, I mean, Nagon, you're just coming along onto this live stream, but we were looking at we're talking about market collapse in terms of mortgages, and one of the things that they showed out in California was that they were renting these Home Depot sheds as actual living spaces.
Yep. I see. That's ill. It's ill.
Yeah.
Ill,
but they had a solution from a different article, man. We were touching on before you got on here, and they came up with this idea of fixing the homelessness problem with dumpsters.
Wow. So what are they going to do? Start housing people in dumpsters?
Let me show you.
That's wild.
That's ill.
I think we could really solve much of this homeless issue, man, by the government reinvesting some of its money in its people as opposed to putting all its money into the military. But they don't want to talk about that.
Look at this, Nagon.
Let me take a look at this, man. Let me take a look at this effery that they're coming up with. Those are like the FEMA trailers that they want to talk about. They were kin to that.
I don't know if that's a FEMA trailer, man. That's
what the
FEMA trailers. FEMA trailers are luxury homes.
What?
Yeah,
WTF? For real?
Yeah, this is a solution that they came up with I'm not some time ago about how to fix the homelessness issue on Skid Row, right? So some dude came up with the idea of creating a dumpster, a home out of a dumpster. Look at this. It has a air conditioner on the outside. Um, it has a solar roof. It has an antenna erected on the side of it with a pole for broadcast TV and internet. I guess to get Boost Mobile or whatever it is, $45 a month. It still kept the stickers on the outside though, and that concerned me because what happens when somebody says, there's a dumpster I need to have sanitation workers come remove, man, and somebody pulls up while you in there sleeping.
And pull out all your internet and shit goes off, and you next thing you know, you got the back of a truck getting ready to get dumped. Ain't this the illest?
No, the security.
Yeah.
The security of it though, man, you get some tin cans, man, with some string and just tie it up to the outside, man, and just hope that if anybody comes by tripping, man, those cans stop ringing off.
Okay.
Hey, it's got added security, man. Ain't no straight bullets getting through that bad boy.
Oh, you would hope not, man. You would hope. Look at this. Got a welcome mat, and it has a mailbox with the address on the side of it, man. With a little.
This is American for you. This is a milk. This is a milk. Okay.
And I guess you're if you want to cook, man, got the little stove top outside.
Well, all right. Well, there's some people out here who call themselves ghosts. They cooking, so if they want to cook, they show them how to cook.
Look at this one. Got a patio up top.
Mm-hmm.
It's ill.
This is ill. You in the milk. You in the milk. This is a milk.
Hey, that's that rooftop party, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You in the
getting
milk
down, man.
Yeah.
You in the milk. You in the milk now.
But I mean, we laugh, but this is what they're talking about the market going into. I mean, look at this dude here. He's chilling.
Well, we looking at this thing and joking about it. People are looking at this as a serious solution to a problem.
A real problem, because Nagome, before you came on, we were reading an article about retail stores closing across America, and and CFOs are saying if it gets any worse, it's going to be blood in the streets, and that they're predicting by the end of 2020 that you're going to see a serious market correction.
Well, we definitely know that's coming. And I saw where this was last year in I forget the name of the county. I was looking at it on I have some here in my notes. I got them flipping through it. But in the county of West Virginia, they closed the Walmart there. Mm-hmm. Walmart got closed down. You hear about Walmart's closing. So they have in some of these rural areas where whites and poor whites as well. So you've got a lot of them, as well as you have, poor black men who were in these dumpsters. They're closing these big retail stores around the country because these areas are being denuded of people. People are leaving, so they're leaving the these areas and trying to move towards the areas that are red states. What they don't want to break it down is a lot of people from the red states are running out of red states, come to the blue states and try to work. These areas are being denuded of people. And big retail chain stores are leaving these areas. So yeah, this has been going on a lot, and it's going to continue to go on. You don't hear about it because it's affecting white people, but what's going on in LA in these areas like this is pretty frightening. I mean, it's frightening. My one of my boys was out there last year, and he actually took film of it. So he was riding through there and literally filming it on his phone. So yeah, this is a real serious problem, and making dumpsters out of this and wiring them up and all.
Making homes out of dumpsters, you mean? But yeah, I mean, look at if this white dude was a brother, man, he'd be Afrocentric, man. Those would just be RGB, man. Incense burning everywhere, man. You probably need a whole lot of them in a dumpster like that, but
it still doesn't speak to the sanitation problem that you still have.
What sanitation problem?
Well, what happens if you have to go to the bathroom?
Man, niggas is trash, nigga, man. Butterlade, niggas is trash out here. That's how they roll.
Yeah, you right. You are absolutely right. You are
this, is,
absolutely
this is what it's coming down to.
Woo, boy.
I mean, they got the internet for the dumpster, but niggas live streaming from talking about how select they are.
Oh man, come on, man.
Select versus non-select. That's what it's coming down to.
And I'm just getting home, man. You gonna be starting this shit with me, man.
For real.
Non-spaghetti. All right.
Now, can you be select if you own your own home?
Can you be select if you own your own home? Well, you see, I don't go with the whole non-select. Select, you don't label them, but I don't go with the whole select thing. So I would say no. You're not select just because you own your own home. No. And I'm just saying that just to say it.
Yeah, but you got guys writing books, talking about guys who travel, those guys are non-select. Why they live in a dumpster? And they ain't traveled since the Soviet Union, right? Since the Soviet Union collapsed. And these guys is living inside of a dumpster talking about who's select versus non-select.
You ain't shit, Mike.
The man problem. Yeah, you got a real problem here, man.
Yo, Mike V ain't shit, y'all. Y'all gotta say that. Say that in the chat. Mike V ain't shit, man. I swear for God. Anyway.
It's crazy. It is crazy out here, man.
Oh boy.
This is the future. We talk about 2053. To me, this is 2053, right? They're preparing for this, 30 years in advance. Like, this is how you gonna live. The black community, a bunch of dumpsters on the street.
That's their answer, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I really would like to see what the answer to be with some of these other centric folks and all that. What's their answer to some of this? What's their answer to some of this?
Imagine somebody, come by with some spray paint and just like deface your whole entire home. Somebody come by and write B1 Network on it. Like, yo.
Hey, you know what, Mike? They'll probably set it up like a trailer park, but it'll be like a dumpster park.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Dumpsterville.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, jeez, man. I'm just getting in the crib, man. Hey.
Come by with some
Anyway, yeah, Mike, I don't know, man. Just as long as you keep the internet alive, man. You keep me straight.
Man, this is the future though. This is it. This is it, man. But Johnny Blaze says, man, when he was in the military, he saw guys getting it in, man, inside of a dumpster. So
oh yeah, man. Yeah, I was when I was teaching tech training, the students, they can't get it in the dorm, so they went to the dumpster.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. People, running by with spray paint, putting, SWAT stickers and hashtag, I cook, B1 and all that stuff on it, man. Can you actually file a police report for that though?
I guess what defacement of like what private property.
Police probably be laughing at you. You live here?
Yeah, if you don't like where you live, then move. No problem. Go ahead and move. I'll be right down the street.
Hey, look, it's on wheels, man. You can push it.
Oh yeah.
It's got wheels, man.
Yeah, you can go on Craigslist and find some helping hands or something like that to come help you out, man. There's got to be some buddies in the neighborhood.
Hey, technically, it's a mobile home.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. You would have to put it like on like a dead end street or something like that, though. You couldn't have it like on a main street. Because what happens, in up north, man, in places like New York and Boston, when there's a snow emergency, everything got to be moved up off the street.
Yep, you gotta move that off the street, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, what city would allow people to live in a dumpster beside the street? What neighborhood? I mean, what neighborhood would allow you to live in a dumpster? That neighborhood.
Well, you factor in they don't seem to have too much of a problem with tents being popped up on in these same neighborhoods.
No, well, some neighborhood, they were trying to get the people out of the parking tents. People were in LA. They were moving into the parks and they moving the people out.
This could be actually a pretty good business opportunity. If you think about it, you buy the land for these folks, and you rent the land out to the people who live in the dumpsters.
It already has its own toilet system. It has a composting toilet inside of it.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, perfect. I mean, you buy a plot of land, a few square miles, pop them out there. Hey,
hold on a second. Who said composting toilets?
Me. There's a picture. I think you might have missed it. There's a picture of a toilet inside of it. It's a composting toilet.
Yeah, I saw that in Sweden. I saw that in Sweden and in Copenhagen years ago when I was there. They had that going. They actually had that working. See, they actually had that. They actually had composting toilets there. And I have something I hadn't been exposed to until I looked at it and I saw how that actually worked. And actually, the end product is like a soil that has no odor or nothing to it. And you can actually use to grow plants and stuff. They were using that as a way to in their fields and stuff to grow stuff. So so that actually is actually a quite viable idea. But how they have that set here, I don't know how that's going to work, but
in Africa they have something. We covered an article earlier this year that showed that the Africans have figured out a way to take poop and turn it into like charcoal alternative, and it actually lasts longer.
Yeah, the briquettes. Yeah, you can burn that. Yeah. I mean, the Chinese people were doing that with pig waste. They were using that not only as charcoal, but actually as a way to produce methane to actually heat their cooking devices.
Right, and that's what the Africans are using it for. So, I mean, I guess this is viable. Maybe in the next, by 2060, when everybody else is flying in drones and whatnot, you living in the dumpster on the ground. This is the real Gotham City. For those of you who have seen the Joker, and whoever seen the Joker last night, man,
I haven't seen it. I'm supposed to see it tomorrow night.
Oh man, it's off the hook, man. That shit is fire, man.
I heard it. They said Joaquin Phoenix killed it. He said he pulled out the frame. So I'm supposed to see it tomorrow. So I'll be there. Tonight I'm just getting late, so I wasn't able to do anything. But okay. That's I mean, there are a lot of ideas. Like you say, people in drones and folks making trips to the moon and all this kind of stuff. And you're gonna have folks on the ground composting toilets and maybe an internet connection. Okay. All right.
We're creating two different worlds, bro. You're gonna have those.
It's here now.
They made a movie about that. I mean, the people who had it were living in this luxury, what's called off world, and the people who were living on planet Earth were dying. I mean, you were. So that's the way it's planned.
Wasn't that Elysium? Yeah, that was Elysium. Yeah. Elysium. Yeah, that movie was out. Yeah, they were showing you the future. Yep, they certainly were. Yeah, they're showing you the future, and I think these people, a lot of the stuff that they put out here in the movies, they're trying to beam messages, and that was the real message. And I think we might come to that. It may come to that. This place might become a big dumpster, and others might be living elsewhere.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, Nagon, you remember that favela right outside the Sao Paulo airport?
Yes, I do.
Man, this thing reminds me. I'm looking at this, and it reminds me of this. You stack all these dumpsters on top of one another, and it looked just like that. I have a picture like that in my mind.
They had people. They had stuff like that. I mean, some of the favelas you went into, some of them actually had some areas that looked fairly decent and were hooked up. But on the outskirts of some of those areas in those favelas, people living in plastic bag houses and plastic, definitely dumpsters and stuff like that. Yes, we definitely saw it with electrical wires coming in that were damn near raw, that were coming into to power their TVs and stuff like that. Really, really ill stuff. So you do have people literally living around the outskirts skirts of Rio that are living this way. There's no question about it. And then what would be terrible about it is that sometimes if you had a rainstorm, and that was Rio, and that was also Sao Paulo, but you had a rainstorm, sometimes you have these giant floods and wash these people out. And then you have electric.
The whole hillside fall down, everybody died.
Yeah. They would be disastrous situations. You never hear about it. The people would, maybe 50 or 100 people would get killed, and it would be silent. They were poor people, mostly black, and you don't hear about it.
Yeah, and that will eventually happen in the United States, where people are living in dumpsters. People throwing rocks at dumpsters, using it for target practice, and Nagon, you have a lot of static on your mic.
I'm sorry.
Can you imagine some people coming by and lighting that thing on fire, knowing that you're inside there, cook you?
Well, I think it already has a fire extinguisher. If you look at right here, it has a fire extinguisher.
That's why the fire extinguisher then.
Yeah, that's why that fire extinguisher is there. But you do all your cooking on the outside, not on the inside. I guess you don't want the smoke alarm going off for the carbon monoxide detector. But yeah. I was surprised when I read this article as well. I forget where I read it previously, but this is what they were proposing as a solution to homelessness. People really bought into it. You had California officials saying this might be viable. Yeah, because 80% of the niggas on Skid Row are fucking black men.
Black people.
Yeah. Yeah. Dumpsters with spinners on them, and guys out there with little armor all or maybe cooking oil or something like that, trying to make it shiny, make the wheels shiny. Niggas out there with virgin oil, trying to make their wheels shiny.
Oh shoot!
Oh boy! Yeah, my gosh! I guess you gotta laugh at some of this shit. This is ridiculous. But these are the options, and the homeless issue. And I think we're going to see a lot more of it, a lot more homelessness. And it's a very serious issue. And I know at the end of the day, we kind of chuckle a little bit. But this is no laughing matter. This could happen to one of your family members. Who knows? This could happen to anyone over the years.
Yeah, I mean, Pharaoh Edmonds said in the chat, this, niggas turn into a cum dumpster. He's terrible. He is terrible, man.
Yeah, Pharaoh, you ain't shit either, man.
Yeah, good thing he's driving on the road. But I mean, we talk about economic collapse. People say, "Oh, you guys just talk about doom and gloom. This will never happen." Oh, really? We got some of the top CFOs in the country that are saying 2020, end of 2020 will be the year, be the time frame for, a recession. They're closing all these retail stores for a reason. They're not closing it because they ain't got nothing better to do. They're not making any money anymore off this. The economy is sliding. People aren't spending as much as they used to. The jobs, remember, 20 to 25% of those retail jobs are filled by African American women.
Yeah, and we already know with respect to automation, of which you have done, you did a hangout on already. We know with a lot of those jobs are going to be going shortly. So the future in some respects doesn't look good for certain things. Doesn't look good.
Yeah, but also if you go back and look at from the 70s, every new recession that we have, there's a certain amount of people that don't recover at all, and the numbers keep increasing. Every like the last one, we just had an article Mike was reading, where like 40% of the people are still in housing where they can never pay off the mortgage. They go from a 20-year mortgage to a 30-year mortgage, then to a 40-year mortgage, to a 60-year mortgage. You'll never pay off your house. You never, every time the bank refinances your house, the price of your house goes up. You pay the original price you pay for your house was 100,000. Next thing you paying 120,000. Next thing you paying 150,000, 170,000. And now when you refinance it this year or whenever the next recession comes, be 200,000.
Right.
You know, and not only you, but the people who bought a house 2 years ago who can't pay for their house now because when they bought the house, the payment was $800, and now because of all the taxes and all that, the payment is now $2,000. I mean $1,000 instead of 800, and their pay hasn't gone up, so now they are underwater. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
So this thing ain't increasing. The
you're going to
economy,
see a lot. You're going to see a lot of that.
economy.
Yeah, you're definitely going to see a lot of that. Houses flying back again. We already saw it quietly. People didn't want to talk about it, but a lot of cars came flying back. People couldn't pay for their cars. So that was the next scam. And that there was a bubble there that hit pretty hard. And now car sales are down. A lot of cars came flying back. A lot of cars got repoed. A lot of cars got taken back. A lot of people gave up their cars, man. That happened. So, that was the first wave. And that was quiet. People didn't want to speak about that.
What about the trucks? You guys were talking about the trucks. You and
MOT.
Man Tomorrow we're talking about trucks. How they come back and take your truck?
Oh yeah,
they'll
30
take,
days. 30 day
take
repos.
that 30 days. 30 days, your truck gone. I mean, it's like
I mean, this thing is happening, and it seems like a lot of people are nobody, unless you really like dealing with something like we are talking about this here. The average person don't hear about it, so they think that everything is going along fine until boom, this recession hit next year, and they say, "Wow, I just lost my job." You not just lost your job. If you were listening, you will see that your job was lost 2 years ago because you weren't paying attention to what's going on, and you didn't switch to a job that you know going to be more secure.
Well, the little picture that I'm looking at right now shows the door with all the ketchup and the condiments on it. I just realized that's the pantry. You know, Farrell Edmondson said in the chat, Netflix and chill. To each his own, brother. To each his own.
Netflix and chill. Damn. You know, a lot of us are out there. A lot of brothers out there. There'll be white folks and others out there, but a whole lot of us gonna be out there, boy.
I'd love to see what the swirl is.
I saw an article here the other day. This brother, he's 48 years old. He had amassed a small fortune, and now he's living on Skid Row in LA. And people don't think that this can happen to me. You know what I'm saying? And that's the people who have the intelligence. This guy was in the business community, investment banker, and he has the intelligence to keep that from happening to him. What about the people who just working a job? I mean, this is gonna get tough on them.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have at least $1,000, $1,500 saved up in your savings account or a stash for an emergency, you're already behind the curve. So,
you were talking real deal. In fact, I'm sitting here right now in my drawer. I just keep, and I just keep $1,500, $1,500. I spend in an envelope. I just keep it. I just keep it in the drawer of my office. Just keep it here, just in case banks go down, something happens. You never know. Next thing you know, bang, you got no cash. You can't, because I remember during 9/11, man, shit hit. Now that was a situation where I was in the city, couldn't get my hands on any money. There was no cash around. Shit was all jacked up. I said, oh my gosh. So I said, I'm never going to walk around and not have any cash money on me. So I just keep, an envelope with a small stack in there in my house all the time.
Hey, Nicole, I don't know if you remember this. It was one day in New York City in 2010 where they cut a cable at JFK, and half of was Queens, half of Queens and Brooklyn. None of the banks can give out money. No ATMs were working. You remember that day?
I remember when that happened. Some people thought it was a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
They said that but some people, but it wasn't. But I think they had cut some cable by accident.
Cable inside the airport, and
Yeah.
and you can go in. Your car wouldn't work at the supermarkets, so you have to have some cash on hand.
Like I said, I keep a stack with me all the time. Sit right here in my drawer in an envelope. Just keep it right here.
Mhm.
And that's where I've been doing this for years, just in case shit breaks wide and you've got nothing. You know, having a few hundreds on you can help you. And that's it's ill. It's ill, but that's where we are. 9/11 showed me that. So anything can happen, and
Yeah.
you're done. You're back to the Stone Age overnight.
Mhm. Not just the Stone Age, but the dump stage, maybe.
The dump stage.
Yeah, I mean, what happens when you order Uber Eats? I mean, how do they know where to come, make their delivery to you? It's just really weird, man. Just really weird. I wish brothers would actually pay more attention, to these live streams, because, we make joke and make light of things because, you have to laugh so you don't cry because of how bad this is going to get. For those of us who are fortunate enough to play our cards right, we'll be the last ones to be spared. But for those who did not, play their cards right, man, they this is their fate, to be inside of a dumpster, or either a dumpster or a pine box, man. I'll choose the former. But,
Yeah, if I had my druthers, I'd choose the former. I agree. Yeah, but that definitely can be the case. But it's tough. I don't know what to say, gentlemen. I have to say I'm a little bit ignorant of this dumpster piece. You're showing me this, and I gotta look into this a little more. I don't know how that escaped me, but yeah, that's a very interesting piece. Kind of scary, actually, kind of scary.
mm-hmm.
Kind of scary. And see, this is the real thing that bothers me is we do have an answer for some of this. Reshuffling some of the funds and stuff that we have going out publicly to other issues and not addressing the issues of the people. I'm kind of thinking if things really do get that harsh, I don't know what we might see. I don't know what we might see. Folks might come for those who have a lot. And I think we might see that might happen. Don't count that out either. I'm not saying black folks will do it, but the thing, it could come to that. It could come to that. Because one thing I was online the other day, and I was on the Real News Network, and they had one lady who was on there talking about poverty in America. And she just cut right to the chase. She goes, most poor people in this country, and we're not excluding black people, let's because we are harshly hit. But they were talking about just how many poor whites are out here, and that there are more poor white people out here than anybody. And they're saying that is a rumbling problem that, they keeps quiet, but that could be a real issue, especially out in the rural areas and so forth. These states, they're worried, and these states are emptying out. They're emptying out. And they're coming to the more coastal states, looking for work. And the Midwest and a lot of areas are starting to empty out. They're emptying out these areas. Mm-hmm. So this could be this is a real issue. So poverty in America is an issue, and it looks like that the oligarchy and the and the plutocrats and so forth that they won the war over organized labor. They won that, and they took everything, and then this is what you're seeing. This is what, in fact, what you're saying could be a reaction to that. This is what I'm saying. It could be a reaction to some of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A rainy woman is saying, that they can't afford to Uber Eats. Hey, we can afford Jordan, Air Jordans,
Can you imagine that?
You gotta sell your Air Jordans and buy some movies.
But can you imagine that? A dude comes out of a dumpster with True Religions on?
Listen to this. I saw a video. This was maybe about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. A brother, he was driving a Dodge Charger, nice car. He had rented one of those rent spots, maybe U-Haul rent a spot or whatever, where you put your stuff in. He was living in that, and his girl, some chick he was seeing, apparently got tight with him. Came in, found out. Apparently, the word got out he was living in this spot, and she came in and they videotaped her busting into this guy's like little rental spot where you're supposed to rent your stuff, where you're supposed to stash your stuff, and he's there with his car outside. He's living in this. He's living in that space.
It's crazy.
He's living there, and she opened up. She's like, "What? What is this?" She went ham on this dude. And he had a big old car sitting outside. So
maybe he's using the car to tow it around. It had a hook on the back.
No. He was going back. If he was living in this spot, going back and forth, parking his car out there, and somebody apparently blew a whistle on him, and his girl rolled up there and saw him up in there and tore him out the frame. And he woke up. He was laying in a bed. He woke up. He's like, "Oh shit!" And she was like, "What is this?" She went ham on him. It was like,
yeah,
it was kind of crazy. But he had a Dodge Charger. He dropped that around.
Hey, Mike, you mentioned about those Air Jordans, man. For some reason, I got a lot of the young guys at the college that, they're still under the impression that that shoes are currency.
Yeah, man. It's hard to break their habits, man. There's a dude on YouTube who got exposed some years ago, man. He had a whole room full of Jordans, but he was sleeping on the floor, man. It was crazy. Yeah. It was like, where are your priorities, man? It's just it's a shame to see black men not as resilient as other groups of men in the same country. It's just the way how they think and the way how they move is vastly different. And people will attribute that to slavery. They'll blame slavery on anything. But coming out of slavery, man, in 1865, man, the brothers were building institutions. I don't know what they're building right now. Building dumpsters.
I mean, I right now I see. I mean, this is going beyond the black community now. I mean, I got white students as well. I got one yesterday was her birthday, white female, and that's and she's like, "Hey, I got to leave class early." I'm like, "Why?" I got an appointment. I'm like, "For what?" I'm going to get a tattoo. I'm like, "Oh God, come on now." I'm like, "You're broke." Well, my boyfriend gave me $300 for a tattoo. You want to maybe get like a mutual fund, invest that money in. Oh no, I can't do that. Okay. So I mean, if it's happening to them, of course, it's tenfold for our people.
But the thing, it's supposed to happen to them, right? In a way, because that's the karma catching up with them from slavery. But for black people, you would think that they would have a little bit more resilient thinking in that regard. That if you're gonna be in this situation, this is your future. I mean, look at these little tiny homes that they're talking about doing, man. I mean, these are basically dog houses.
I'm gonna say this: the Japanese, they have these prefab homes that they build that are real tiny, and they look like they're akin to dog houses as well. I mean, the Japanese are doing this. And they've been doing this for a while, and they got these little homes that they live in, on these little pieces of like little squares of land that they have, and it's that's how they're dealing with their housing issue.
I think they call it micro homes, but
They have that. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the problem with United States is that the building codes and zoning laws don't allow for that sort of setup, right? So I think in New York, the bare minimum that you have to have is like square footage is something like 330 square feet, something to that effect, for it to be considered a home. So a lot of
I think so. In New York, I think so. I would have to check what the building codes are, but it's somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's either 320 or 340 square feet. But that's like the bare minimum in order for it to be considered a tenancy. So those Japanese micro homes are 240 to 280 square feet, so they fall way under the
Yeah,
regulations.
yeah. But they have them in there. It's pretty wild, but they have them in there.
See, Japan is basically about space. How much living can you do in a certain amount of space, because they don't have the space to build these huge mansions like people in the U.S. normally build.
Yeah. That is true, but they live in these real claustrophobic little joints, man, and they got a lot of those going around. So I suspect they'll probably do that. But we have so much land here in the United States that's not even being used. I mean, I was talking to MOT this the other day, and he was driving to Wyoming, and he was just showing you just these huge, wide, giant areas of nothingness. You can drive for 100 miles, and there's nothing but just raw land sitting out there.
100. You can drive for 1,000 miles.
No,
I'm not kidding.
He was saying for hundreds of miles. He was just driving across, and you see nothing. I mean, it's still, what we don't talk about here in the United States is we still have frontier land. We still have it.
Serious.
We still have frontier land here. We still have frontier land. We still have it.
You can drive through from one state to another, and you might see one farmhouse.
We still have frontier land here, and we have people living homeless. You have to ask the caretakers of our republic are they're psychopaths. They're psychopaths. And you have to look at what's really going on. That's why we have to play a no nonsense game. And some of the stuff that I hear going on, and some of this talk that we have here is just absolutely insane. We have to really sit down and think about, if you want to talk about a community or community, you better start talking real dollars and cents stuff, and instead of some of this crap that people are out here talking about.
See, but in our society, in what we call a modern society, wealth is generated in the cities, not in the countryside. Before, wealth was generated in the farm or the gold fields or something like that, away from the city. But now it is in the city. Service sector U.S. is everything is in a high-rise building. You can move into a high-rise building, walk downstairs to your job, or take the elevator downstairs to your job if you have enough money, and in the same building you if suppose you're in New York City, you come downstairs and here's the supermarket right on the bottom. And that's the world we in. That's the way it is.
Well, I mean, guys had a lot of time to really figure this out. All that dope money the boys were getting in the 80s and 90s, they were flashing it around. And they said, you guys are educated lames. You're not select and things like that. Who's really not select now? When someone can come by and vandalize your house and no one ever blinks an eye at it. Somebody come by and kick your house and wake you up early in the morning.
Well, all throughout, people.
Somebody come and kick your house, wake you up, huh?
Someone
spray B1 on it, man.
When the women start coming back where are you going to put the women that are coming back to the black community?
Oh, do you mean the negotiation table that people like to talk about? A negotiation table that,
where are you going to put these women at?
In the dumpster.
I mean, what happens when you're tearing it up in there? Does like the dumpster roll around? I mean, do you have to put rocks under the wheel to keep it from moving?
That dumpster rocking over there, boy.
Somebody in there getting it in.
Rocking.
Oh boy.
Straight Dom came up in there.
Dom game dumpster.
Man. Hey, thank you all for joining us, man. Please hit the like button if not already done so. Share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted today on the community tab. Document in the description beneath the video for you to refer back to. And just as an FYI, we're not certified financial planners. If you want a certified financial planner, go to cfp.net and look up one in your area. We do not give out financial advice on this channel. And if you want life coaching, Reigning Woman in the chat actually offers life coaching. So make sure you subscribe to her channel and she can actually give you some tips and pointers and influence as to where you need to be in life. That being said, thank you all for joining us, and peace and shalom.
Hey,
Good night, folks.
everybody.